I'll get rid of the FBI?
Yeah, I would shut it down, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, Jesus.
You ready to have an open? You're an open-minded guy.
I'm listening.
I know you. You'll listen. So that's why I'm bothering with this, right? By the way, I have a book recommendation for you before I get to it. G-Man, Government Man. It's the history of the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover's history of the FBI. You read that book, that will already open your heart and mind to the argument I'm about to make.
I'm already reading a book about cross-dressers, so I can't.
Okay, well,
no, I'm kidding,
this can come next,
no.
Okay,
go ahead.
Cross-dressers are important too. But the gist is this. The FBI is a failed institution. It is at once politicized, corrupt, and has been in many ways designed to be corrupt. J. Edgar Hoover designed it that way. The same FBI that threatened Martin Luther King with suicide, blackmailing him over incorrectly collected tapes, is now targeting its domestic terrorists for people who show up at concerned parents of school board meetings. So in some ways, this is built in by design.
That's coming from the FBI?
Yeah, it's coming from the FBI. Now, here's an answer to this, okay? At the local level, you've got local cops and you've got local prosecutors. You don't have a separate bureaucracy sitting in between. Well, now let's talk about the federal level. You've got the U.S. Marshals, and then you've got the DOJ. The DOJ has its issues, but I think the president can reform that through good appointments. You don't need the separate bureaucracy sitting in between. So I'll walk you through the math, because I know you like details for this to be credible.
Well, certainly for this issue.
Yeah, for this issue, right? Because you brought it up. 35,000 employees at the FBI. 20,000 of them report into work at the J. Edgar Hoover building. Still, they celebrate his legacy. The J. Edgar Hoover building of the FBI they walk into. That's
Washington.
the bureaucratic rot. That's in D.C.
So you're saying 20,000 of the 35,000 FBI men work in Washington in the same... They fit 20,000 people in one building?
I mean, it's a giant building.
20,000 people in that building?
I don't know how many of them show up in the post-COVID era for Zoom or whatever, and they have field offices.
Well, that is a big building.
But I'm saying are in back office functions. 15,000 of them are frontline agents. These are good people doing investigative work on drug crimes or sex trafficking or whatever it may be. They're not specialized at the FBI. So I've offered, if I may say it myself, unprecedented detail on how to get this done. Those 15,000, move some of them to the U.S. Marshals, which have been far more effective at fighting child trafficking rings than the FBI. Move some of them to the DEA, which has been far more effective on the front lines of the fentanyl epidemic than has been the FBI.
If you're going to get rid of an agency, why don't you get rid of that one? The DEA.
Well, actually, the investigative crime, we have laws in this country, so you could debate whether you like the laws or not. But I'm saying as long as you have the laws, we're talking about effectiveness here. And my point is the FBI is broken. Take financial crimes.
So you're saying the 20,000 people who work in Washington, they are all superfluous?
I can't tell you that every one of them to the last T is, but I've got 4 years to a first term. I got to move quickly.
Yeah, I think you just...
And so I say chop it off, shut down the FBI,
so
move them to the U.S. Marshals, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network at the U.S. Treasury, to the Secret Service, which handles some financial crime as well, and then to the DEA.
Okay,
that's the answer.
So here's something the FBI was involved with. So I'm asking who would handle this.
Yes.
Say an ally country like Australia.
Yep.
Has a tip, and we trust that they are an ally and the person is credible.
Yep.
And he has been talking to someone who got drunk in a bar and said he had information about how a foreign country, Russia, was trying to infiltrate our election. And he was placed in this candidate's operation. He was an operative for the person running for president. So the Australian diplomat tells the FBI. Do you think that's right?
Well, I think we could separately talk about the circumstances of that particular case. But you're saying somebody gets a tip.
Well, that's how the Trump-Russia investigation happened.
Which, you could argue this in multiple ways, Bill.
Well, what I'm arguing is this.
You could say that actually is part of the corruption that led to an
but what I'm arguing is
existed.
this, because this is what happened.
Yeah.
An Australian diplomat, somebody we trusted, said this guy, it was George Papadopoulos, I think was his name, was a little drunk one night, and he was telling him about how much the Trump campaign team was coordinating with the Russian government. Now, we can argue the rest of the night about what happened after that. Of course, they did. But should that not be investigated by the FBI? And if not the FBI, I don't see how the federal marshals or who the Texas Rangers are going to handle that one.
I actually think U.S. Marshals would be a fine place if you move people to that
Really?
division. As a side, I mean, I'm going to resist the temptation to go down the rabbit hole of debating something that's like a dead horse that we needn't beat for what was, I believe, a deeply flawed Russia collusion narrative that went nowhere. But let's just talk about something like it is your question for the purpose of reorganizing the FBI.
We have facts that are, well, at least facts. We have the reports of 2 Republicans, right? We had the John Durham report, right?
We have a Durham report, yep.
And what was the one before that?
The Durham report was about the FBI's.
Horowitz.
Yeah.
They were both about the investigation of the investigation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The FBI opened this investigation into whether Trump was too involved with Russia. Let's just put it that way, based on this Australian tip. And of course, it turned out he was. His campaign manager was sharing polling data with a guy in the GRU.
But you know who else was too involved with Russia? Was the Hillary Clinton campaign.
That's ridiculous.
It was via the British guy Christopher Steele with the Russian disinformation operative getting the golden shower story planted down, used as opposition party research.
That's a red
to get
herring,
a FISA.
and
I'm just saying both parties. Politics apparently is far dirtier than I ever imagined in both political parties. And I just don't think it was good for the country, Bill, that we had that impeachment inquiry for the first 2 years.
Let's go back to what we can actually talk about for real.
Yeah, because this is just like ancient stuff.
No. Because the 2 reports.
Okay.
The Durham report and they both said the same thing. And these are Republicans. At least Durham is.
I mean, to me, I could care less about the partisan distinctions.
Well, everybody else cares about it. So let's not pretend you don't care.
Well, the reason I don't care because there's a lot of I think about it as whether or not you're part of the managerial class or whether you're actually being accountable.
Well, that's important too, but also...
And that exists in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party alike.
But we are crazy partisan right now, and people only stick with their team, even when they know better.
I tell grassroots conservative audiences across...
Hey, thanks for watching the clip. Hit the subscribe button now so you never miss out on our Club Random content that's posted daily.